up, Tzu Chi volunteers in Indonesia work with the military to bring food and water to flood survivors. Tzu Chi volunteers in Vietnam organize a year-end blessing ceremony and visit solitary seniors prior to the arrival of Lunar New Year. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Helen Nell. Thank you for joining us. Consecutive days of rain in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta, has brought the city to a halt. Floodwaters engulfed the city's streets, causing major traffic disruptions for those on their way to work. Some kind-hearted residents decided to take the matters into their own hands to help others get to work on time. Furthermore, Tzu Chi volunteers have been working together with the military to transport food and water to the flooded areas.
Wet season floods have engulfed the streets of Jakarta, disrupting traffic in the city centre. As traffic had come to a complete standstill, Ali decided to take matters into his own hands.
We always experience floods around this time of year. Instead of just sitting in this traffic, my friend and I decided we might as well help steer cars out of the way.
The frequent flooding in the capital has become a nightmare for Jakarta's residents, especially for those who have to get to work. Zainal, who is familiar with the ins and outs of the city, has kindly offered to drive people to work on his motorcycle.
We're all in the same boat, so we have to help one another. They also need to get to work, so we're trying our best to help out. Rubbish is floating around everywhere, making the surroundings untidy and messy. It's not a good sight, so we have come to help clean up.
Since the floods, Tzu Chi volunteers have been working with the military to deliver water and food into the affected areas. Some volunteers who were trapped in their homes were also evacuated to safety.
I saw that the water level had risen to thigh-high in some areas. Then I received a call from Brother Atang asking if we needed to help evacuating. Initially, I didn't feel the need to, because we have enough perishables at home. But then I thought I should be out there, joining other volunteers at the flood site instead.
Although some volunteers were victims themselves, they put the welfare of local residents in front of their own. In the streets of Jakarta, roads have turned into lakes. The water level has reached thigh-high and in some places waist-high. Days of heavy and persistent rainfall has caused the river along Kapuk village to overflow. Some villagers chose to remain home and wait for the waters to recede, as they were unwilling to evacuate to temporary shelters.
Some of the residents are still deciding whether they want to evacuate. If the water level rises, though, we will have to leave.
This community in Tinkering is completely submerged, and the rising floodwaters have carried debris everywhere. The local mosque is filled with people seeking shelter.
I hope there will be no more flooding. It's very depressing. My husband can't work and we can't put food on the table.
Tzu Chi volunteers waded through deep waters, bringing help to where it was needed most.
Ya alhamdulillah, tadi Bapak ke sana minta.
I'm so grateful. I turned to Tzu Chi for help. The residents here are also thankful for all of Tzu Chi's assistance up until now.
Sampai saat ini terbawa berhasil gitu.
With the assistance of the military, volunteers prepared hot meals, rice, cooking oil, mineral water and daily necessities to address the residents' most pressing needs.
To help those affected by the worst flooding in 30 years, Tzu Chi volunteers began handing out consolation cash in the form of cash cards to flood survivors living along the eastern coast of Malaysia. Besides providing monetary assistance, the volunteers also made sure all recipients felt respected when receiving Tzu Chi's help. Here's more. Early in the morning, volunteers young and old stand outside the distribution venue, greeting those attending Tzu Chi's cash card distribution.
Doing a handshake like this is a part of Malay culture. This shows our gratitude and respect.
The volunteers remain patient and guide each recipient with smiles on their faces, despite the repetition the task requires.
When organizing the cash card distribution, the first thing we took into consideration was our recipients' religious beliefs. The second was to make sure they felt respected when receiving our assistance. We need to put ourselves in their shoes and respect their situation.
Regardless of the scale of the distribution, the volunteers' love and care never changed.
Recipients were separated according to gender after entering the distribution venue. We want them to feel that we respect their cultural beliefs. This is my first time attending such an event. I'm extremely moved by the volunteers' gestures.
Although having to bow many times, the volunteers' warm smiles never fade. Knowing that some recipients have difficulty moving about, the volunteers brought their aid to them personally. Touched by the volunteers' gestures, several recipients shed tears of gratitude. Now, thanks to Tzu Chi, these residents have found once again the strength to carry on. Chinese New Year is fast approaching. We now have several tips for you to keep you healthy and safe for the holidays. Remember to take breaks when driving a long distance and adjust your seat properly before you start driving. Also, when cleaning, always use proper tools and take breaks every 30 minutes to prevent injuries.
As Chinese New Year is just around the corner, it is customary for Taiwanese to get busy and clean up their homes. However, if they are not careful while cleaning, they may injure themselves. When mopping, people should choose a mop that has a long handle. Lifting heavy items takes skills too. One should never bend over to lift heavy items, as that may injure their spines. Instead, squat down and lift with the strength of our legs.
When sweeping the ceiling, people who have neck problems might injure themselves from prolonged periods of arching backward. People should use a sweeper with a proper handle or use a ladder.
Also, when driving home for the new year, drivers should first adjust their seat properly. If the steering wheel is too far away, they might arch forward and strain their back.
When people suffer muscle or joint aches, they might think a couple of days rest will be just fine. However, we actually recommend moderate exercises instead of simply sitting, as that will help increase blood circulation and relax tightened muscles.
Prevention is better than cure. Remember to take breaks from chores every 30 minutes to prevent injuries, and take breaks when driving long distance to stay safe and healthy for the holidays.
In today's series on understanding sleeplessness, we learn more about different stages of sleep. To help understand the working of the brain while we sleep, doctors monitor the electrical activities in the brain with the help of EEG. And through analyzing EEG, doctors can find out what is wrong with our body.
Due to the brain's chemical reactions, currents are generated which can be detected with electrodes that monitor brain activity. This is the so-called electroencephalography, or EEG. When a person is awake, the brain is active and brain waves will have shorter amplitude, be tightly grouped and exhibit random patterns. But once a person is asleep, the patterns become larger and more regular and exhibit a larger amplitude. Research shows that when the brain is asleep, it goes into 3 different stages, which are light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. In a night sleep, the body goes through 4 to 6 different stages. The REM stage is known as rapid eye movement sleep. This is when people dream and their eyes move rapidly.
Typically, there is a safety mechanism within the brain that protects us when we dream, so our body will not act out our dreams.
For patients who suffer REM sleep disorder, their body will act out their dreams.
I began kicking and punching while asleep. I even tried to get up and walk, and ended up breaking my leg.
Though the injury was an inconvenience for Mr. Guo, he was most troubled by the constant feeling of fatigue.
People who have this type of disorder act out their dreams. So while they sleep, they may start screaming, waving their arms, or kicking their feet.
For some patients, they may act involuntarily even without dreaming.
有时候是全身不能动。
Sometimes I felt completely restrained, and other times it felt like someone was pulling strongly on my hands or feet. I thought I was being haunted by vengeful spirits.
Unable to sleep and worried, Mr. Chen turned to Western medicine for help, where doctors easily dispelled the superstition of haunting spirits.
His brain was not producing enough dopamine, which caused abnormal electrical activities in the brain, and thus the involuntary movements.
Sleep disorders tell us that something is wrong, and the problem can be deciphered through observing EEG. When a person is relaxed, the EEG displays a steady and regular pattern known as alpha waves. Once entering light sleep, the slowed wave pattern changes to theta waves, and during deep sleep, the amplitude of waves increases to what is then called delta waves. To get a good night's sleep, the brain and all parts of the body have to work in symphony. If one part of the body is in trouble, the balance is disturbed.
I slept less than 2 hours a night. It turned out that 3 of my arteries, 2 here on the left, were clogged by 50 to 70%, while the one on the right was clogged up to 80%. For those with heart problems, typically they will have trouble breathing when they lie down, which will make sleeping difficult.
Through endoscopic surgery, doctors were able to put 3 coronary stents inside Mr. Zhong's heart.
I can now sleep very well, and my health is perfect.
Through analyzing EEG, doctors were able to properly diagnose Mr. Zhong. As technology continues to advance, more secrets of the human body will be deciphered.
As Chinese New Year is just around the corner, volunteers of the Tzu Chi Vietnam Liaison Office visited seniors living at a local temple in Ho Chi Minh City. But first, we joined the year-end blessing ceremony in Ho Chi Minh City, where participants donated fill bamboo coin banks to pay the love forward. At Tzu Chi's year-end blessing ceremony in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, nearly 700 people showed up for the occasion. A total of 200 filled bamboo coin banks were also donated.
Firstly, we can learn to have a compassionate heart. Secondly, we can cultivate blessings for ourselves while contributing our share to help the less fortunate.
Prior to the year-end event, volunteers mobilized to decorate the venue. Many volunteers even started rehearsing for the musical adaptation months ago, as they hope to bring a flawless performance on behalf of their audience.
I love performing sign language because each song is embedded with a special meaning. Initially, I didn't dare to go on stage, but now I have learned to overcome stage fright.
After becoming an on-stage volunteer, I have discovered the spirit of Tzu Chi. I'm extremely moved, and this is an experience that I will never forget.
Regardless of the differences in race and faith, many say they will treasure the Tzu Chi blessing in wisdom red envelopes.
I see a lot of activity, good activity that we do a charity in the public. Go to different areas, different countries and so on, help poor people and so on. That is very good. And if I have a chance, I wish to follow you, to do all this charity work.
I've gained so much from today's year-end blessing ceremony. Now I know how to face each day with happiness, and every person with kindness and tolerance.
Besides organizing a year-end blessing ceremony, the volunteers also brought the joy of Chinese New Year to seniors at a local temple. The temple houses solitary seniors from the ages of 60 and up and provides them with 3 meals a day. On weekends, volunteers from various charity organizations will arrive to spend some time with the residents. With Chinese New Year fast approaching, Tzu Chi volunteers thoughtfully prepared delicious vegetarian dishes for all.
It is okay if you laugh at me, but I love all the dishes prepared by the Tzu Chi volunteers. As long as we don't go to sleep on empty stomachs, it doesn't matter what we eat, right?
For residents that have difficulty moving about or are weak, Tzu Chi volunteers feed them with extra care. The volunteers hope their visit can allow the seniors to feel once again the warmth of family. In New Taipei City, Taiwan, Tzu Chi volunteers organized a year-end event on behalf of care recipients prior to the arrival of Lunar New Year. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, care recipients reciprocated Tzu Chi's kindness by donating their filled bamboo coin banks during the year-end blessing ceremonies held in Medan and Jakarta. At the Jingsi Hall in Jakarta, Indonesia, more than 5,000 people gathered to celebrate the arrival of Chinese New Year.
I have learned two important lessons from the Tzu Chi Foundation. The NGO helped me realize that we can cultivate both wisdom and blessings by helping the less fortunate. We can actually gain merit for ourselves by helping others.
Tzu Chi volunteer Johnny Chandrina says watching the Wisdom at Dawn broadcast has helped him better carry out Tzu Chi's missions.
Many of us didn't really take the Dharma to heart until we started watching Wisdom at Dawn. Now we make sure to incorporate the Master's teachings when conducting charity missions.
Every year, Tzu Chi volunteers always make sure to hold a year-end event on behalf of their care recipients. 53-year-old Jetekwa says the volunteers' warmth has helped him deal with the loss of his son.
Thanks to the encouragement of volunteers, I was able to cope with these hard times.
The joy of the holiday also reached those attending the year-end blessing ceremony in Medan. Besides volunteers and care recipients, the event also saw the participation of government officials and leaders of different religious organizations.
Today's year-end event really touched my heart. Some of the ideas and words of wisdom passed on by the volunteers moved me deeply. I think Master Zhenyan's ideals of environmental protection and conservation is in line with those promoted by Hinduism. In order to achieve a disaster-free world, we need to spread the concept of recycling and protecting the planet to the public.
To give their care recipients a chance to experience the warmth of Chinese New Year, volunteers held a vegetarian banquet at the Tzu Chi Shiji grounds in New Taipei City, Taiwan. Tzu Chi volunteers decorated the venue with red and yellow balloons symbolizing happiness and good health. Cancer patient Mr. Xu, who is also a single parent, arrived at the venue with his daughter and son.
In the past, I would usually take my children to the night market after New Year's Eve dinner because we didn't have a place to experience the warmth of family reunion. This year is different because of Tzu Chi.
Besides the vegetarian banquet, team of doctors are also on site to safeguard the care recipients' health.
It is our job to not only look after care recipients' bodies, but also their minds. We hope our care recipients and their family members can look after one another.
Despite the cold front and low temperatures outside, the banquet and activities organized by the Tzu Chi volunteers have warmed plenty of stomachs and hearts. In the Philippines, Tzu Chi held year-end blessing ceremony at the Jingsi Hall in Quezon City and the Education and Recycling Station in Marikina. Attending the ceremonies were both care recipients and many from different faiths. Regardless of religious or socioeconomic background, everyone cherished the opportunity to give back and to pray for peace in the new year.
Here in Marikina, Tzu Chi volunteers are holding their annual year-end blessing ceremony at the Tzu Chi Education and Recycling Center. Among those attending is 84-year-old Luminacion, who cherishes the red envelope of blessing and wisdom that she receives every year.
I keep them safe as they represent blessings.
Despite having to care for 5 grandchildren, the grandmother always brings a filled bamboo bank to donate during the event.
This is not a burden. I sell vegetables for a living. Giving back is something that I should do.
While at a similar ceremony at the Jinsi Hall, volunteer Lugina shares with the audience how 8 years ago, in the face of illness, she realized the power of helping others.
Now, I don't think of my sickness, but only how to help the poor and sick.
Attending the year blessing ceremony were also many from different faiths.
And the values, the Christian values are the same, forgiving, contentment, gratitude. So I feel good.
Although we are Muslim, we have the same values and firmly believe that helping others is the greatest blessing.
And when scholarship recipients get on stage to perform, off stage their proud parents have nothing but thanks for Tzu Chi.
Thank you po sa mga donors, sa mga nag-donate.
I want to thank every Tzu Chi volunteer. Without their help, my child would have no way to easily attend school.
Through giving and gratitude, attendees and volunteers alike are looking forward to a wonderful new year.
In Tainan, Taiwan lives Mr. Huang, who is paralyzed from the waist down. Huang and his wife live in a dilapidated home in Yongkang district. Sympathetic to the couple's situation, the local borough head turned to Tzu Chi for help. In just over a month's time, the volunteers helped renovate the Huang's home, giving them a safe shelter.
Walking up the collapsed stairs, Tzu Chi volunteers are paying Mr. Huang and his wife a visit. As Mr. Huang is paralyzed, the job of providing for the family has fallen on his wife's shoulders. Empathizing with their situation, the local borough head turned to Tzu Chi for help.
They are borrowing water and electricity from their neighbors. This piece of land they are occupying belongs to the government, and they haven't been able to afford their rent.
We have fixed the leaks for you. Once we have repaired the bathroom, we'll then install a handrail by the stairs. You will get better and better. Don't worry, we will always be by your side.
Promising to accompany the couple through their hardships, volunteers gave the house a top-to-bottom makeover. In just over a month's time, the stairs, floor, ceiling and windows were all repaired. On completion of the renovation, volunteers also gave the home a thorough cleaning.
感谢公啊，你对我来看我的温情，关心我。
After putting up spring couplets and hanging up a peace charm, volunteers bid the couple farewell with blessings and best wishes for the new year.
We go to Pluit, Indonesia at the end of the show, where Tzu Chi volunteers and staff members of the local Jingsu Books and Cafe cleaned up the store following the recent flood. Thanks to everyone's hard work, the store will be up and running again in no time. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for watching DaAi Headlines. Goodbye.